Hello and welcome to the IFT show in Chicago. I'm Elaine Watson, reporting for FoodNavigator-USA. Now, no self-respecting conference on innovation these days would be complete without a session on open innovation. But what is open innovation in practice? Who's doing it in the food and beverage industry? And how is it evolving? Now, to discuss these issues, I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Zynga, who is Chief Executive of NineSigma. Now, NineSigma is a kind of matchmaking agency for companies wishing to collaborate. Well, thank you for joining us, Andy. Now, to continue with the dating analogy, how does NineSigma help companies find their perfect partners?
Yeah, so I would say it starts with making the right need statement. You have to know what you're looking for in order to find it.
Yes.
And that's where our team usually helps our clients to make a need statement that's clear, compelling, and concise. So that's the first step. The second step is to identify the right partners. And that's, again, where we are very helpful. We identify usually when we do a technology search for a client, several thousands of potential people that could have the answer. And so that's the second one. And the third one is to, after you've reached out and made the connection with those partners, to broker the conversations, to make sure that the right questions are asked, the right answers come in, and stuff like that. So that's how we make sure.
How would you say that open innovation has kind of evolved over the years? Is everybody doing it now, or is it just something for the big boys in the industry?
Yeah, so it's far from all pervasive. We see even in companies, when we look at the total potential market of open innovation practitioners, I would say maybe 40–50% are doing it today. Now, mind you, different companies are at different stages. So we see some clients that are very evolved, that have done open innovation for a very long time, and others that are really novices, and others that are still sitting on the fences. Like I said, the 50–60% that are not doing it. And the other thing is, really what we're seeing is that more tools, more players are coming on the market, so there's a bit more of a diversity. But we're also seeing a stronger interest in the mid-sized companies of $100 million to $1 billion, where before it was almost exclusively billion-dollar plus companies practicing open innovation. So it's an interesting trend to see the smaller players also looking at it.
So looking about kind of best practice and how companies can organise themselves to facilitate this process best, do they need an open innovation team, or is it just people within the organisation? You know, how do you do it successfully?
Right. It depends on how much the leadership of the company is bought into this. For example, Procter & Gamble, when they started out 13 years ago with their Connect and Develop program, they decided to do a complete big bang. So they said, let's invest a lot of money into this. But we see a lot of companies that are doing this a little bit more carefully, where they're saying, let's start out with a team of people, one person, maybe two, that in the first instance starts to collect the needs. Because again, I said earlier, it's important to know what you're looking for, and you got to have the people that do start looking for those needs inside the company. Yes. And that doesn't have to be a full-time position. It could be a part-time position. We've seen some clients start out like that. And then to do the first steps towards making technology searches happen with an intermediary like NineSigma, bring in those proposals, and thus learning the ropes on how to do open innovation effectively. So it can be done in a stepwise kind of way, really testing the waters, running some projects, seeing how they go, creating successes early, which is really key. And that way you can do it with really not such a huge investment.
What about the kind of pitfalls, not to end on a negative note, but, you know, where can it all go wrong, and what kind of advice would you give to companies, who are looking to get involved with this process?
Right. Yeah, so there are a few of those, of course, as in everything you do in life. So one of the things I mentioned already, executive leadership buy-in. We see some projects sort of petering out because there isn't enough support from the leadership in the company. So that would be one. The second one is to really pick the right projects. I was doing a presentation yesterday where a gentleman from General Mills was presenting, and he said exactly those words. He said, make sure you pick the projects that have ample funding, are strategic to the company, and those are the ones, if you can create successes, you can make some really good headways into this. And of course, again, you want to make sure you have those early successes so that you can communicate them broadly.
And finally, maybe make sure you've got a good lawyer with you.
Yeah, the lawyer is an interesting point because a lot of the large corporate clients that are seeking technologies, they have a law department that's very well versed, of course. You know, they're very specialized, they know a lot, and they know how to deal with suppliers. Now, open innovation is more about partnerships, and that's where it's very important to have the legal team rebriefed about what you're doing. And that goes back to the point I made about communications, to be broadly communicate internally so that all the stakeholders know what's going on. They all know that this is a very strategic program. Goes back to leadership, where maybe the CEO or some very senior person communicates to everyone, this is important to our future. This is what gets us to market quicker. And that's, I think, the big piece of advice is to make sure the legal function is clearly briefed on what is being done, and that this is not about like very, very tight control of a supplier, that this is about a partnership. And I think those are the key points.
Fantastic. Well, it's going to be a win-win for everybody if both sides have a good legal team, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Andy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
This is Elaine Watson reporting for Food Navigator USA.